Nerd Skool is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Now offering video visits, so you can take control of your orthopedic care from the comfort of your home. Schedule online at orthocarolina.com. Ortho Carolina, you improved.
Nerds roll. Oh, my glasses are broken.
Surprise me.
My pocket is protected.
Surprise me.
I'm a super nerd.
Surprise me.
That's what's Batman.
Hey.
Excelsior!
I am a super nerd.
The Nerd Skool Podcast.
Starring Andy.
I am a former entertainment journalist.
I am a super nerd.
TBJ.
Hi, this is Tiffany. You may hear me be referred to as TBJ.
TBJ, y'all.
I am what I like to call a surprise nerd.
Art Star.
My name is Art Star, and I am an artist.
Yo, my name is Joe, and I am the nerd student. The nerd pupil, if you will. All right, welcome back to the Nerd Skool Podcast. Thank you for listening, listeners. Thanks, nerds. We left off in the last episode. We just got to Don Cheadle and the cool Senate scene with Gary Shandling of Iron Man 2, and we're going to pick it up from there. We're going to jump right into some Don Cheadle conversation, some Don Cheadle appreciation, if you will. So here it goes. So, Art, do you want to say anything about Don Cheadle, or do you want to save it till more Don Cheadle?
We got to go further into this story.
Okay, we'll get further into it. So, anyway, I immediately just forgot completely all about Terrence Howard, and I was like, give me more Don Cheadle, because and then I think I commented throughout the whole thing. Their chemistry is so good. I thought Terrence Howard's was good, but Don Cheadle, yeah, he just...
I think he's got so much more charisma, I think. And he is so much, like, it's an easier way to relate to him, I think.
If I was Tiffany, I'd probably say he has more swag.
Or you can just say it as yourself and admit it's true.
God, I love it when you guys argue. I think Terrence Howard has more swag. Don Cheadle is just... I can't put my finger... It's just like...
He's like just Don Cheadle.
Yeah, he's just fantastic. He's such a great... I think he's a great actor.
He is. And he's underrated. He is.
And I think part of it because he's been in everything. Like, he's been in a million shows. We've seen him everywhere. Like, he's like America's... Like, we know him. You know what I mean? Like, he's... And what else is it? Like, it's something... He's got comedic timing, I think. He's got a lot of comedic timing. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is.
He does a good job of balancing. So when you watch Don Cheadle in things... and it's probably my grief with Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard is also very method. So bringing it back to Mickey Rourke.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Very method.
And if you didn't know that, you might have a different opinion, you think?
Not if I was still watching the two of them on the screen. Like, if I'm watching them act it out, Cheadle's going to win always because his skill set is apparent. I mean, look at
I think for this movie, like, if you put a Terrence Howard's roadie against Don Cheadle's roadie in the MCU, like, I lost my train of thought. Terrence Howard, his roadie, like, he didn't have the right swag for, even when he did the whole, like, when he looked at the suit, he was like, next time kind of thing. It wasn't as swagalicious as if you would have saw Don Cheadle saying it. And then how, like, Don Cheadle has pretty much taken the character and kind of, like, molded him into, like, what he is now. But it was also, like, I think his swag is more... It's more on par for this role as opposed to Terrence Howard. His swag has this whole, like... It's not the same badassery as, I guess, Don Cheadle's swag would be for this role.
Well, that's a compliment then to Don Cheadle.
Yeah, look at you, Art.
Coming around, loves Don Cheadle now.
Agreeing with Tiffany on something. God bless.
This is also because I watched quite a few movies recently with Don Cheadle in the MCU, and it's kind of like maybe subconsciously or like not subconsciously, maybe somewhere in here he's attaching himself to my frontal lobe, and I just can't shake it or something.
Or he's just so good that you are now finally giving the man his props that he has deserved.
I've never formally hated or Don Cheadle. I'm just saying.
You didn't hate him, but you still were not that hype about him versus Terrence Howard last time we talked about this. Just a reminder. I was over here on Lonely Man's Island like Don Cheadle, and everybody's like, I don't know, Terrence Howard. And I was like, Don Cheadle. Just to remind you all, Tiffany's been on Don Cheadle for a long time because he's incredible. Period.
It really is.
In my defense, I've watched Iron Man 2 quite a few times in recent weeks, so it's
come to the understanding that Don Cheadle is king. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Right.
Back to the movie. More montages of Mickey Rourke.
I'm not.
What?
I just want to say I love the whole Senate scene.
Yeah,
the whole
it was
scene,
very
the whole
entertaining.
interrogation. Gary Shandling being a perfect sleazy senator, just trying to force Rhodes into reading one specific out of context thing to make Tony Stark look bad.
Yep, just like the senators do.
It's the absolute it's a great Tony Stark being a lovable dick. It's like, oh, god dang it, that guy. You see why Justin Hamber would want to be him so bad. Because he's just effortlessly confident, and he backs it up, and he makes a fool out of everybody that's trying to mess with him. And he's got the public on his side. It's just a really, really good, fun scene.
And I think what this does, too, differently than old movies in the past, of superhero movies and whatever, a scene like this would just be exposition and boring, and everybody tunes out. This was thrilling and exciting and funny with Gary Shandling in there, and he's just so something about it is different than old movies. That's good. So I think that's good. So okay, back to more montages of Mickey Rourke. Back to Tony's workshop where we find out that his heart thing is what is it called? The arc reactor is taking its toll on his.
So you can remember.
What's that?
We're going to tattoo arc reactor.
Oh, arc reactor. I keep calling it the heart light. It's taking its toll on his blood toxicity. Jarvis says, the thing that's keeping you alive is also killing you, sir. And turns out he has to drink 80 ounces of a weird purple liquid, which I guess is chlorophyll, to counteract the damage. And then Pepper comes in upset about Stark Industries and what a mess it is and what is going on and on. Tony interrupts her to make her CEO. And that's when we first hear him say, "It's you. It's always been you," and that kind of comes back later, and when he's in love with her, whatever, and he's dying or whatever happens later. Back to Russia, a guy gives Mickey Rourke an envelope. It's a fake ID and some sort of Grand Prix tickets or something. And back to Tony boxing with Happy, and then he's distracted by Natalie Rushman's beauty. Scarlett Johansson walks in, and so again, I've completely. As I was watching this, in my mind, I just couldn't remember because I've seen so many of these movies so many different times. I lost track. Is this the first time we see Catwoman?
Yes.
I mean
It's not
Black Widow. Sorry, Cat. Whatever she is. Scarlett Johansson hasn't been introduced anywhere yet, right?
No.
Okay.
This is the third film entirely, so this is only her first appearance.
Okay. This is her first time,
so
we as viewers don't know that we don't even know she's Black Widow. Black Widow.
We as nerds knew she was going to be Black Widow because we've been following it beforehand, but most people are not supposed to know that she's actually
when this came out, you already knew she was already signed on to do Avengers and be Black Widow?
I don't think... I mean, they were planning the Avengers movie, but we knew she had signed on, and I think it God,
we knew it was coming.
10 years ago.
Natalie Rushman is an alias. Was an alias of Black Widow, right?
Possibly. I mean, it's not far from Natasha Romanoff, which is supposed to be her, or Romanova.
But in the comics, she doesn't start out as an intern for Stark Industries, right?
No. That was just a way to introduce her to the fact that she's a spy.
Yeah.
And showing her doing her actual spy stuff.
And we find out
But
later
she does-
she's planted a shield and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
in this time, she gets in the ring with Happy, and he condescends to her to do a lesson. And then she kicks his ass with her patented Hurricane Rana thing, where she like jumps and flips his head down, or whatever.
Yep.
And then suddenly, I remembered at this scene is when I remembered from the comics that Happy was a boxer. Like, he was a former boxer. That's why he's training everybody, right? And he was a boxing champion or whatever.
Right.
Because one time when I really tried to be a nerd back in like 1999 or 2000, I bought one of those big books of like, I can't remember what it's called. Ultimate, like original. It was like it was like
now I'm forgetting
it was Iron Man.
Masterworks.
Like the Essentials.
The Essentials. Essential. It was Essential Iron Man Volume 1 or whatever. And I went and read, because I was interested in, like with everything, I'm interested in the origin stories. And so that's when I read, I probably got through half of that Essentials, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I reading this anymore? But it was interesting to me to know like how he started and some of that. And I remember, but then it was also weird to read 60s comics, because it was like, this is also dated, and it's just like just everything's so different, and it's so hard to watch.
The panels on the pages are hard. Sometimes the stories were easy to follow, but like the way the panels look on the page opposed to the way they look now. Now you read through a comic book, it's almost like looking at an action movie.
Yeah, it's so much action.
Yeah, it's like, I think secretly they were teaching you to also read while you enjoy nerd stuff. You know?
See, it was not a secret. It's what they were doing.
Yeah. And, okay, so then we cut to the Grand Prix Monaco in French. Or it's written in French, or something's written on the screen. Tony arrives in a limo with screaming fans. We see that he has hired Black Widow as his personal assistant. And then there's a quick Elon Musk cameo. Did you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I recognized him, but I was like, I had to Google that, who he was for a second. I was like, who is that guy? And there's a little back and forth with Hammer asking for a spot at the expo, and Tony says, as soon as you make something work, you can have a spot. And then we see Tony's toxicity going up. He goes in the bathroom and checks, and he's not doing well. And then he's about to drive in the race, and the reporter that Tony hooked up with in the first one, Christine Everhart, she leaves Justin Hammer to go cover because he's going to drive. Like, he's driving, what? Then the race starts, and then we see the bad guy walking around disguised as a pit crew guy. The camera is on him immediately, and he starts whipping cars with his electric whips. And now, I think, is when we figure out he's Whiplash. And I only knew who Whiplash was, I think, Andy, from HeroClix. And so here's where I put in my notes, tell us about Whiplash, but you've already kind of done that, right?
Yeah, I do want to note up to this point, just the stuff that's been going on is like, this is kind of a melding of a couple of different, the more of the famous Iron Man stories from the past. The whole movie kind of is. It kind of like his whole bout with alcoholism. Is basically, it's sort of touched on in this, especially at the birthday party scene later. But it's he's getting more and more reckless as this is going on, because he knows he's dying and he thinks he's dying. Yeah. He doesn't have a cure. He doesn't know what's going on. So he's doing more reckless stuff, like mouthing off in the Senate, deciding to go race in the Grand Prix for. It's just like he's kind of acting out, kind of a thing.
And this is from the comics. This is all storyline,
or at least the alcoholism thing is. But there's also a storyline called Armor Wars, where everyone's basically trying to copy his Iron Man technology, and a lot of people have stolen some of his designs. So he goes around trying to destroy all technology that was copied from him. If you got your own designs in your crazy armor suit, because in comics everyone had a cool armor suit, so he's going around trying to figure out who ripped him off, who's using his designs for bad shit, and trying to shut it down. And he goes so far off the reservation trying to do this that he kind of gets outlawed. He's kind of becomes a renegade, and Tony Stark has to, like, this is back when for a long time, Iron Man was Tony Stark's private bodyguard, and he had a mysterious identity, which is what they sort of head fake towards at the end of the first Iron Man.
Is this back in the 80s or 90s? Or
I think this was the 80s.
Oh, wow.
It was Armor Wars. Like, there was a whole bunch, like, Iron Man, who do you fight? Iron Man and some other guy with a different set of armor, like the Crimson Dynamo or the Titanium Man, or all these Russian villains. It was the Cold War, so you had a lot of Russian villains with Russian tech. So this is, like, a lot of this is taking elements from the big Iron Man comic stories and running with it.
So Whiplash isn't necessarily Russian in the comics, or is he? Do you remember?
No, he was Italian, I think.
Oh.
But there was I think maybe making them Russian is sort of a way to reference the Crimson Dynamo and Titanium Man, which is actually a song by Paul McCartney and Wings, surprisingly enough.
Okay.
No, that's Magneto and Titanium Man. Sorry.
Idiot.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay that he mixes up some things.
That's okay.
But I think this was a way to kind of reference the whole Cold War, the Russian.
So the Russian thing isn't necessarily it, and that the bird thing is all not.
That's all Mickey Rourke, I'm sure.
Or he just wanted to make a bird thing. I wanted my bird.
That's part of the backstory he probably made up.
A lot of actors get a chance to make, if there's no clear defined backstory to a character, when you decide to act or take on a character, you get to help shape, or you're shaping that, and it motivates you as an actor when you're having conversations, or where's that energy coming from? Do you remember those commercials that are like, "What's my motivation?"
Yeah, what's my motivation?
Yeah.
What's my motivation?
When actors are creating backstory, they're giving their characters motivations for things. So instead of like Whiplash, I just don't like Tony Stark. We know the father piece, but then he has created his own, how he survives, what's going on. All that is his creation. And sometimes actors talk about it with directors, and sometimes directors are like, you do that. And sometimes directors are like, yeah, no. But he's Mickey Rourke, so I feel like he got a little bit more wiggle room to delve in. But most actors build a backstory before they go in, because, it's not always written out for you.
There you go.
Yeah, you gotta know how you're going to react in a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You have to know your anger triggers to know how you're going to act. Otherwise, you can't just be angry. I mean, you could, but people could tell that it's superficial. Or you can have, your character has a trigger. So when someone does this, when Tony Stark says this, that's a trigger for him. Or whatever it is. It seems weird, but it is helpful when coming up with a character.
All right. Well, then Happy shows up with his Iron Man briefcase. And he and Pepper take off to get it to Tony. Whiplash whips Tony's car, cutting it in half. Tony flies through the air and crashes. This scene, I wrote, is pretty badass. All the cars blowing up and crashing while calmly, ominously walking through it all is Mickey Rourke.
Yes.
And at this point I wrote, Mickey Rourke is great in this, I think. Like I love him as this villain, just walking slowly through all the explosions. I guess anybody walking slowly through explosions is cool, but at this point I was like, I really like this movie so far. Like, I like this. This is great. Right away, it's pretty quick to happen, and we're already in this big action, blow up everything. Mm-hmm. And then Happy appears just when Tony is doomed, and then nails Whiplash with the car. And then a funny argument ensues about better security. Did you mean to hit me or Tony? Because he had to jump out of the way. Or did you mean to hit him or Tony? Whiplash isn't done, though. And then he slices the car in half. They just barely get Tony to the case in time for him to fight Whiplash. And I wrote, let's be honest, the costume case takes forever. It's pretty freaking cool, though. He turns into Iron Man and gets thrown around a bit by Whiplash. But then we see him regroup, and the music crescendos, and he's ready to kick ass. And that moment is like the moment that we all love in movies,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the briefcase armor is it was a standard Iron Man trope for a long time. He just would carry his armor, somehow he'd flatten it out, and just carry it around in a briefcase, so if he needed to change. as far as I know, it never quite worked like that. Just open it up and put your fists in it, and it covers him.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, I have my Iron Man armor right here in my briefcase. Let me go change into it.
Yeah. That was cool. I mean, I gotta say, it's pretty sweet how they did that.
And also the red and silver look for Iron Man. Normally he's got the red and yellow. I mean, like, he started with the dull gray, which you saw in Iron Man 1. Then, like, the second one was shiny gold, but it was still that clunky thing in the comics. And then he went to the hot rod red and yellow, and that was basically his standard look with different shapes and sizes. But there was a period of time where they decided to change it up and make it silver and red. It's called, I think, the Silver Centurion armor, or something like that. And so that was basically a nod to that whole era. Where
nerd. Sorry. Just the thing.
But you learned something new from that nerd, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I just can't believe they have. I guess I do believe that they have names for that.
I mean, if you're going to change the look of a superhero, you got to make a reason for it.
Yeah, you cannot just change anything about their looks
without naming it
not
something.
To question it.
Well, I wrote that this is the moment that I love these movies for, these Marvel movies. Like, as I'm watching, I had to stop for a second. I was like, I'm suddenly aware of how lucky we are to live in a time where they can make these movies look so cool. I mean, Iron Man, we're so lucky. I mean, think about it. If we were like our age now in the 80s, we'd be old people that don't even care about this. Like, but we get to enjoy it. Huh? Yeah, I don't know. If we were dead by now, I guess. I'm saying.
Right.
Like, if we were dead, we're just lucky that we got to see this.
Anything if we were dead by now.
Well, yeah. I was thinking about how shitty the movies in the 80s and stuff were, and how the action was terrible, and I was like, oh god, this all looks stupid. Maybe we didn't think so then. But
did we think so back then? I don't think we did, because we gotta remember, for the 80s, that was advanced. Was advanced.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were missing. You're right. Yeah. But the old 80s Hulk and stuff like that, you go back now and watch it, it's real shitty. Yeah. But this was it looks real. Like, it looks like it's really happening, and it looks so cool. And I just took a moment. I was like, screw naysayers. These movies are awesome. Like, it's so cool to get to see this. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's maybe why comic movies waited till now to really take off. I mean, you had the Superman in the late 70s that was, that looks cheesy now. You can see all the wires and whatnot.
So crappy.
Or you can kind of see how they rigged it up, the flying thing. But at the time, it flies. But to pull off the crazy stuff, the thing with comics is there's no limit to your imagination. Whatever you can draw can happen in a comic book.
Yeah.
That's why Galactus exists, the weird purple guy from outer space that tries to eat planets. That's why there's all these batshit cosmic characters of that sprung out of the mind of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Just how the craziest cosmic weirdo shit we can get. We'll talk more about this with Guardians of the Galaxy, but that's whatever you want. Like Doctor Strange had these crazy, trippy, freaky magic mindscapes. So, but movies couldn't do all that until technology advanced to the point where then you can have a crazy ass montage like you saw in the Doctor Strange movie, or the really high tech flying around and looking effortless Iron Man stuff.
So, and then there's this cool part of this where Iron Man wins. He kind of winds up the whips and pulls him closer, and then punches him, and throws him down, and takes out the chest piece, and Whiplash is now defeated. And then guards come in immediately somewhere and drag him away as he yells to Stark, "You lose!" and he spits blood at him. And then Iron Man examines the tech and then crushes it. And then he...
Yeah, that's very Armor Wars.
That's the Armor Wars that you talked about?
The whole thing, he had a negator pack that he would go to Titanium Man and put it on his armor and just fry all the Stark-related shit in his armor and make it not work anymore. Then destroy it all and take all his technology back from jerks.
So that's something, that's an homage to that old Iron Man thing. Okay, which I had no idea. And then and then we'll take a break here in a minute. But he then visits him in holding, and they have a discussion, and we found out that his father's Anton Vanko, and that's what I was going to ask. Is this from the comics? But you kind of already talked about he was Italian, right? Anton Vanko.
Well, Anton Vanko was in the comics, but he wasn't. He was Russian, right? He was Russian in the comics, but what Andy said, like the characters were kind of like combined. Okay. Like there was a Dr. Vanko in the comics from that was like an Iron Man villain, but it wasn't the same, I guess, interpretation.
Okay, but he wasn't like a superhero.
No.
And he didn't have a child named Whiplash.
Oh yeah, there was Anton Vanko was the first Crimson Dynamo.
Oh.
Which thanks for reminding me, Art. I remembered that, and I couldn't remember exactly what he was. But yeah, Anton Vanko is the name of the first Crimson Dynamo, who was basically a Russian Iron Man.
So
big, clunky, all red armor that gets sleeker and cooler as.
I think I remember him from the comics. So in this, they're making it that Whiplash is Crimson Dynamo's son, kind of thing, or not, or they don't even mention Crimson Dynamo in this.
Yeah, they didn't mention they certainly didn't say the words Crimson Dynamo.
And I don't think they would actually. I mean, I guess considering Crimson Dynamo was going to be in Black Widow, I don't necessarily think they would have. I guess back then they probably didn't know they were going to do Black Widow yet. Yeah.
Who knows?
But this was still phase one.
There's he first showed up in like '63, so this is shortly after Iron Man appeared in comics at all. And the Wikipedia entry's got a note that basically says, unlike Iron Man, who at the time had to regularly charge the chest plate that powered his suit, the Crimson Dynamo was powered by a self-sustaining generator. So that's kind of a way, the fact that making Anton Vanko the guy who helped develop the arc reactor, the self-sustaining generator, and getting ripped off, that's a deep cut reference there to the fact that Anton Vanko created that technology first, and then Iron Man.
So there were nerds all over the movie theaters going, "That's Crimson Dynamo, Anton Vanko."
Maybe,
perhaps,
maybe.
But then again, like I've said, Iron Man was not super popular.
Yeah,
like his mythos was kind of, I don't know. I mean, he had his fans, but there weren't. It wasn't like in every nerd's lexicon to know who Anton Vanko was.
Iron Man was not Batman or Superman.
Right. Or the X-Men, or...
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so they've really made Iron Man with these movies. So, okay.
This is...
Yeah. They've created him, yeah. And he is like one of the best ones now. Whiplash explains why he didn't kill him, and he says, if you could make God bleed, the people will cease to believe in him. There will be blood in the water, and the sharks will come. All I have to do is sit here and watch, and the world will consume you. So I kind of felt like that line was foreshadowing the Avengers kind of thing, like show his weakness, and then everyone else will come. Because I read something on IMDb that said Happy Hogan, John Favreau, was annoyed while he was directing this because Marvel kept sending in rewrites while they were filming because they were writing the Avengers movie at the same time, and so they kept sending in rewrites and because to make it go with the Avengers and changing the story as they went. So then I started
that and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too, yeah. So he was getting really annoyed because he was just can we just do this movie? And they kept changing things to follow.
And I'm pretty sure that's why John Favreau hasn't done any of these movies since. He hasn't directed any of them.
Right. They said he was getting pretty pissed. He was like done with it by the end because there was so much. So then I started like watching for it. Then I started watching for it. Like everything they said, I was like, oh, is that something about the Avengers or is this something about S.H.I.E.L.D.? Which kind of probably made me distracted, and I might have more questions for you that are stupid along those lines. But that's what I thought when he had that whole line about the sharks will come. You know, all I have to do is put blood in the water, and then... Because kind of was like, at the beginning of the movie, he's talking about how it's world peace. There's no more villains. Everything's fixed. And then all he's trying to do is Whiplash. I'm not trying to defeat you. I'm just trying to show that you can bleed. And then Yeah, you're not invincible, then everyone will come out of the woodworks.
That's exactly.
Yeah, that's another comic, especially like for Batman. There's a big Batman thing, like the debate of which came first, the Maniac or the Bat, or like does dressing up as a bat to terrify criminals just invite criminals to up their game to become like this massive rogues gallery of crazy villains. And that's something Vision says in Civil War. It's like, a very strength invites challenge.
Huh.
And so it's a pretty standard comic thing.
That's like an ongoing comic
to debate what came, like, how far into heroism you go before you start creating your own villains. And the MCU has done a lot
Batman.
to assign kind of the blame for a lot of other villains to Tony Stark's massive ego. Zemo is created directly from Ultron fucking up Sokovia in the later movies. Mysterio in the last Spider-Man movie blames Tony Stark for commandeering his life's work and calling it barf. And,
that's Jake Gyllenhaal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're getting too advanced for my knowledge. But let's. So I think we're out of time. Let's leave it there, and we'll come back and continue Iron Man 2 next episode.
Nerds roll. Oh, my glasses are broken. My pocket is protected.
I'm a super nerd.
Excelsior!
I am a super nerd.
The Nerd Skool Podcast.
Nerd Skool is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Now offering video visits, so you can take control of your orthopedic care from the comfort of your home. Schedule online at orthocarolina.com. Ortho Carolina, you improved.